The worst thing about every Sonic game.
Every Sonic game, even the good ones, have one thing that holds it back from being perfect. Unless you're Sonic Adventure 2. Because no matter how much you love a Sonic game, there's always going to be that one moment where you just stop and go, why did they do this? And sometimes it's small, other times it completely ruins the game. So today, we're going through every single mainline Sonic game, kind of. So no Sega Streaming Theater Sonic Edition, sorry guys, maybe that'll come later. And finding the one mistake that holds each of them back. And by the end, we're gonna see which one has the worst mistake of them all. But for now, sit back and let's begin with the one that started it all. Sonic the Hedgehog. The biggest exciting incident of my life, as sad as it is to say out loud. I like this one a lot more than most people, but even here, there's one thing that holds it back, just a tiny bit. And no, it's not the lack of a spin dash, the slower gameplay, or even Labyrinth Zone. Okay, Labyrinth Zone's kind of pushing it, but at least there's a shortcut to skip like most of Act 1, so there's that at least. But that's not the real issue. Alright, the biggest issue with Sonic 1 is that every single zone has 3 acts. And that doesn't really sound that bad at first, right? Until you realize it makes the game feel way longer than it probably should. Especially compared to later Sonic games, where levels are typically only 2 acts. Sonic 1 just kind of drags the most. Even if I personally really enjoy replaying this game, probably more than Sonic 2. 2 acts, perfect. 3, just a little too much. Sonic 2 improves on Sonic 1 in a lot of ways. Faster gameplay, the spin dash, tails, and finally switching to 2 acts per zone. But even then, it's not perfect, because I actually think the game regressed in one big way. The special stages. Now getting into them, I like it, but the stages themselves are pretty rough. They go for this pseudo 3D half pipe thing and it looks cool, but the problem is you can barely see what's coming ahead. So instead of reacting, you're basically just forced to memorize everything and getting hit by something you couldn't even see. While playing the European version of Sonic Jam, it made me realize something. The PAL versions actually make it really tolerable because the special stages are actually a little bit slower, so that means you have a little bit more time to react. So moral of the story, play Sonic 2 in Europe, I guess. Now, this next one's where things start getting a little controversial. First of all, I'll be honest, Sonic CD is the classic Sonic game I probably played the least, and I think that actually ties into its biggest issue. There's kind of 2 mistakes here, I guess. One general and one a little personal. The general one is simple. Releasing this on the Sega CD, because yeah, it made the game a lot less accessible. But at the same time, I mean, that's also why people love it, right? The music, the visuals, the intro, all that only works because it's on the Sega CD. So it's kind of like a trade-off. But for me personally, the biggest issue is just the level design. These stages are super vertical and super open, and they can be kind of confusing to navigate for like a first time playthrough. And even like after you get the hang of it, it just never really clicked with me. It's funny because that mistake is exactly what makes it so unique to like a lot of other people, and also very divisive. Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I will be combining the two. My personal favorite classic Sonic game. And honestly, this one's kind of a problem because this game is so good, it's actually hard to find a real mistake. You could argue the Sonic 3 McDonald's promotion was a pretty big mistake, with Sega essentially releasing an unfinished game at the time because of said promotion. Or Marble Garden Zone, I really don't like Marble Garden Zone. But if I had to pick one mistake, it would be the Barrel of Doom. Because if you don't already know what to do, you're stuck. And for a game this polished, having such a major oversight, yeah, it just stands out. After Sonic 3, Adventure pretty much reinvented the whole franchise and laid the foundation for much of what we still see today. Even if you're not the biggest fan of Adventure like me, you cannot deny it was a game changer. But with that innovation came some growing pains, and for me, the biggest issue is just the overall structure of Adventure. Splitting every character into their own separate campaign just doesn't work as well as it should, as most of them are just not nearly as fun to play as is Sonic. Tails is okay, he's kind of brain dead, but he's fun in his own way, kind of like the classics, funny enough. Knuckles, meh. Amy, I like Amy. Gamma, meh. Big, I like Big, he's a chill guy with some rocking music too. But going from Sonic's gameplay to something completely different and inferior every time, it just breaks the flow. And that's why I think Sonic Adventure 2 handled this way better, by combining playstyles into 2 separate campaigns, instead of splitting everything apart. Talking about Adventure 2. Even I can admit when my favorite games have flaws, and Sonic Adventure 2 is no different. And for me, it's the treasure hunting stages, but not in the way most people would think, because I actually really like them here. They're a massive upgrade over Adventure 1. The problem is just like one stage, mad space. I mean, do I even have to explain myself? Every other treasure hunting level, I think they're really fun, but this one is just way too confusing to navigate. The idea is cool, being in space with like these huge Mario Galaxy style planets with their own gravity, but it just feels super finicky in Jake. Same thing with those tubes in Final Chase and in Shadow Generations. And of course, like finding the emeralds in this big area with like upside down hints, it can get a little frustrating. And yeah, you can get better at it, but unlike the other stages, even if you get better, it's just never really that fun. Hey, if you're still watching up to this point, you're probably going to enjoy the rest of the video, so you might as well subscribe now, right? No pressure. Sonic Heroes. Sonic Heroes was a big moment for the series. The first mainline game to go fully multi-platform, becoming a major success despite the mixed reviews. But for me personally, I love this game. It's one of the few Sonic games I can come back to anytime and instantly get back into the swing of things like nothing ever changed. Which is why it pains me to say, Team Chaotix really sucks. And it's really unfortunate because I really like them as characters. Like, it's not the worst thing ever, but the gameplay completely kills the flow. The rest of the game is all about fast, deliberate movement and platforming. And then Team Chaotix comes in and turns everything into slow, mission-based objectives. And unlike something like Adventure 2, where the different styles still feel fun, this just doesn't. It's easily the weakest part of the game. And we're not even at the worst mistakes yet, because trust me, Sega just love to outdo themselves in like the worst ways possible, okay? But we'll talk about that later on. This honorable mention to Team Amy for just being easy mode, which is pretty boring. Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow the Hedgehog's a weird one. It took the series in a completely different direction. Darker tone, guns, multiple endings, guns, and yeah, people were very divided on it. But over time, it kind of built up like a bit of a cult following, you could say, which is kind of crazy because like this game was very mocked on back in like the early 2010s and probably the early 2000s, but I wasn't around for that, so I wouldn't know. And here's the thing, I've never actually played it, so it feels kind of wrong for me to sit there and be like, this is the game's biggest mistake. But if I had to pick something, it'll probably be the edgy tone because that's what made it so divisive in the first place. But at the same time, that's also like the coolest part. Like Shadow with a gun, that's badass. So honestly, you people at home, just, you know, tell me what did you like and didn't like about this game? I love to hear it. Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. All right, this is where everything just falls apart. Sonic 06. What else is there to say? This game single-handedly put Sonic's reputation at an all-time low in the late 2000s. And for good reasons. It's unfinished, buggy, convoluted, just a complete mess. But honestly, that's not even the real mistake. The real problem was its development, okay? Sega pushed this game out for a holiday release, with no room for delays, while the team was already dealing with other stuff like Yuji Naka leaving. And at the time, they were trying to develop for brand new hardware with the PS3 and Xbox 360. It was just too much. So yeah, Sonic 06, it wasn't just a bad game, it's a tragedy. And just like the Titanic, it was doomed from the start.
Sonic 06 could have been
I mean, I don't think that's true, but just go along with it. Sonic Unleashed is a weird one because half this game is amazing and the other half is just like, eh. After 06, Sonic got a major gameplay overhaul, introducing the 3D boosting formula we still see today. And honestly, they nailed it right out of the gate. The daytime levels are still some of my favorites. The speed, the scale, the visuals, the music, there's just this sense of awe to them that hasn't really been matched since. There's something really special here. Too bad the Werehog exists. I mean, he looks cool, but gameplay-wise, he completely kills the pacing. You go from fast Sonic gameplay to slow, drawn-out beat-em-up stages. They're not even that good as beat-em-up stages either, so like, what's the point? So you end up with like one half that's incredible, and the other half that just drags it down. Very unfortunate. Sonic 4 was supposed to be a sequel to some of the most loved Sonic games ever, the classics, and it just isn't. The physics feel off, the music, it's there, and the visuals don't even try to match the originals. It just looks like a cheap mobile game. Because it was. This game was originally meant to be a mobile title with no real connection to the classic games at all. Also, did you know that Super Mario Bros. Is actually just a reskin of a game called Doki Doki Panic? Bet you didn't know that, buddy.
but like they never want to go back and try to do like a retro game. Like even Sonic 4 didn't have the engine or anything.
As far as Sonic 4 goes, that was actually developed to be a mobile game initially. From what I've heard, it was somebody at Sega America says, I want a game called Sonic 4. So with this mobile game in development already, they just said, okay, we'll just call this one Sonic 4.
But then it gets rebranded as Sonic 4, and suddenly it's supposed to live up to the Sonic 1, 2, and 3, and that was just never gonna work. So the biggest mistake wasn't even the gameplay, it was trying to force this into something it wasn't. And honestly, I almost feel bad for this game. It didn't fail because it was Sonic 4, it failed because it wasn't. Sonic Colors was the game that showed people that Sonic could actually not suck every once in a while. It looks great, it sounds great, even though it's a more simplified version of the boosting formula from Unleashed, it still kinda works. But one thing I've never liked about this game is how it handles its levels. Every level has around 6 to 7 acts. Well, besides Terminal Velocity, that only has 2. But that level is pretty much like a glorified cutscene, so that makes sense. And as I said before, I think 2 acts per zone is perfect. Because while 3 can sometimes feel too long, 6 does the opposite, at least in this game. A lot of these acts are super short, so when you finish 1, it just feels really anticlimactic. Because you barely got started and it's already over. I really think this game would have been so much better if these acts were just combined into a more traditional 2-act structure. Because on their own, a lot of them are just not that interesting. Oh, and the game is mostly 2D, which is also not very cool. Sonic Generations is kind of like Sonic 3 and Knuckles for me. It's just really hard to find a major flaw. Almost everything about this game is pretty cool.
I'm glad you're good.
Stuff, like modern Sonic feeling a little stiff about the boost, or classic Sonic's controls being pretty different from the classics. But regardless, they still feel very good to play. So if I had to pick a real mistake, it's that the game just feels kind of short. And the way it tries to hide that length isn't great either. A lot of the challenge acts just feel like filler, something you have to get through just to unlock the next part of the game. I never really want to go back to them, and same with Shadow Generations as well, but we'll talk about that game later. Anyway, Sonic Generations, it's a pretty good game. It's just really disappointing that instead of building on top of this game, the series just kept regressing to the point where it was almost too late. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2. I'm gonna be so real, bro. I haven't played this game like ever. Unless you count that one time I downloaded a definitely legal APK on my phone as a kid. So yeah, I'm not exactly the expert here. Why does he run like that? But if I had to point out a mistake, it's probably just being attached to Sonic 4. That alone kind of sets it up for failure. But I don't know, man. Leave me alone. Sonic Lost World. Oh look, here's another game I haven't played. I've said this before, but honestly, Sonic Lost World actually looks kind of fun to me. I mean, it's got that really cool Zelda DLC, so was this game really that bad? But the one thing that always stood out to me is that this game pretty much threw out everything Sonic Generations did well. Maybe Sonic Team were getting bored of the boost formula or something, I don't know, but they had something good in their hands. They had something that worked with the boost formula, and then they just dropped it in favor for this strange hybrid of older Sonic ideas mixed with heavy Nintendo influences, especially stuff like Mario Galaxy, that they didn't even stick with after this game released. So at the end of the day, nobody wins. Nobody won. Sonic Boom, Rise of Sonic. Yeah, this is one of those games that doesn't really need an introduction, does it? It's a buggy, unfinished mess that almost tanked the franchise again right next to 06. A lot of that comes down to how this game was made. Because of Sega's exclusivity deal with Nintendo, this game had to be put on the Wii U, even though it was originally being developed for way more powerful hardware like the PS4 and Xbox One. So now the developers, Big Red Button, are stuck trying to force this game to run on something way less powerful, which led to cut ideas, rush development in a game that barely even functions. They weren't polishing it, okay? They were just trying to make the game run. So yeah, maybe that exclusivity deal was not such a good idea. Sonic Mania came out at the perfect time. A full-on, no drawbacks, fantastic classic Sonic game that basically did what Sonic 4 should have done, actually respects the source material. This game feels like a lightning in a bottle moment, and yeah, we're probably never getting something like this ever again. Of course, I would have loved to have this game be fully original,
mean,
as that's what I think holds this game back from being my personal favorite classic Sonic game. So I guess that would be its biggest mistake.
It's better,
but at
but
the
I
same
never
time,
really
though,
liked
if they
Mania
stuck with the
that
original
much.
Sonic Discovery idea, the game would have just been way shorter and honestly overall worse.
Was the title
So,
of the video?
thank you,
The
Izuka.
worst thing about
However,
every
it would
Sonic
have given
game.
us a way to play the remastered classic Sonic games on something that wasn't on a phone, well, before Origins came out, that is. So, hey, maybe we did miss out. But, nah, we really didn't.
You're welcome.
Sonic Forces. Sonic Forces. Man, you really had to be
Just
there when
had
this game was coming out.
just had
This
its
game
too
had
short,
shooters, bro. People were defending this game like crazy. Just for it to drop and be one of the most boring, unimaginative Sonic games ever made. Did I mention boring yet? And coming right after Sonic Mania was not a good look.
I
People
enjoyed
were not
Forces,
happy. The biggest problem with Forces is just that it dumbs everything down. The boosting gameplay, simplified. The levels, simplified. Even the story, which was meant to be more serious, also dumbed down. Like Sonic being in like some sort of like resistance movement with like all the other, characters to like oppose a totalitarian regime. That's a cool idea. The whole war theming aspect of the game is like a cool idea, but it's just wasted. Like Eggman taking over the world. It happens off screen in a fade to black cutscene. If you even want to call it a
True.
cutscene, they just open up Notepad for this. I'll always keep mentioning that. I'm sorry. It's just it's so idiotic, and that's the problem with this game. Everything is so simplified, it just becomes painfully boring. Nobody's going back to play Forces, like how people do with Generations, unless you really hate yourself. And if you actually like Sonic Forces, I need you to explain why. Like, genuinely, I'm curious.
Okay, Frontiers is just
Sonic Frontiers is the absolute best. Yeah, it was alright game I've ever played. After Forces, Sonic needed a shakeup, and going open world or open zone was probably the best move they could have made to attract like a larger audience, right? And for the most part, it worked. There's a reason people resonate with this game, even with the mixed reception. I mean, I quite like this game too. I just don't find it to be nearly as replayable as other Sonic games. Exploring the Starfall Islands is fun at first, but doing the same thing over and over again, it just gets really repetitive on replays. But the biggest issue with Frontiers, it's that it's really unrefined. You have the islands, which especially at the end where they're literally recycling the first island as the last island in the game, and also the fourth one, which is super unrefined if you ask me. And then you got cyberspace, where somehow Sonic controls worse than he does in the open zones, which makes no sense considering open zone
think
Sonic
he
controls
controls
just fine. And having that just like in stark contrast with the cyberspace controls, it's just, I don't even know how they thought this was like appropriate.
think
Like
he
how
controls
did they
bad.
think this controlled good? Like cyberspace is in the main game. Why does it control like this? Why does it feel so out of place in its own game? And it's made like a million times worse in 2D. I don't know. And that unrefined feeling is everywhere surrounding Sonic 2. The reused level designs, the floating rails in the sky, the final act and boss just feels rush. This whole game is just messy. But the blueprint is there. If Sega takes what they learned here and actually refines it, the next Sonic game could be one of the best in the series. It's all right there. Sega and Sonic team just have to play their cards correctly. Which means they probably won't, but I mean, hey, I would love to be proven wrong. Please prove me wrong, please! Sonic Superstars. The bosses suck. In the older games, bosses are always vulnerable, so if you're quick enough, you can just speed blitz them, like a fast blue hedgehog should. Alright, nobody was complaining about this formula, it's perfectly fine. But in Sonic Superstars, you hit the boss once, and when they start flashing, that means they're completely invulnerable, until the game decides to let you hit them again. So instead of going fast, you're just sitting there waiting. And that completely kills the pacing, not just for the bosses, but for the whole game as well. It turns something that should be quick and fun into a slow, stop and go mess. Honestly, you're just better off playing time trial, so you don't even have to deal with those bosses. I love Shadow Generations. It really just grabbed me by the arms and told
Shadow
me everything would be
Generations is
okay.
peak.
That maybe Sonic wasn't washed after all. I probably like this game more than most, but I can't help it, man. The visuals and animation work is like a major step up compared to Frontiers, and Shadow himself feels amazing to control, and the level design is just straight up solid. It's nothing mind-blowing, but it's actually engaging. Besides Rail Canyon, but hey, they can't all be winners. Even regular Generations have Planet Wisp. but I do enjoy the second act of the level, so, you know, there's that. I like most of the 2D in this game anyway, so it's no big surprise. My biggest issue, though, it's just too damn short, which is a good problem to have, I guess. But it still sucks when you want more of it. Also, for a game that's supposed to celebrate Shadow, it doesn't include any levels from his own game. Like no Westopolis, you know, besides being a song used in an unrelated Sonic Movie 3 DLC level? Like, that's just disrespectful. That's like Generations not having Green Hill Zone, which is funny to say considering they milked that level to death. But hey, at least the main game was good, okay? Talking about good things, you should check out the rest of my channel over here. Look at that, woo! And you should like and subscribe. And that is not a suggestion, that is an order. Subscribe right now.
What if I don't want to? W video.